You're listening to the Fresh Hell podcast. Fresh Hell contains stories of a disturbing and often graphic nature and is intended for a mature audience. Please don't let your kids listen to this, or they might turn out like us.
Hi, I'm Annie from the US.
And I'm Johanna from Austria, and you're listening to your favorite international podcast. The podcast hosted by two women who never met in real life, because apparently 300 episodes isn't enough of a reason to buy a plane ticket.
I think at this point it's just tradition. I think now it feels like something bad's gonna happen if we do meet.
Yeah. Or maybe we figure out when we meet that we can't stand each other, and then everything is spoiled, the whole magic gone.
That would be
gone.
Wild. I don't think it's possible, but I do think meeting in person is going to happen. Are there plans in the works right now? Who can say?
Or I have an idea. We'll wait for our 1000th episode. Maybe by then they'll finally have beaming available. But seriously, 300 episodes, I can't believe it.
This is amazing. I know I've said this so many times, but sincerely, when we started this podcast, I truly thought it would be 10 people listening to it. And I was going to say half of them would be related to us, but probably 80% of them would be. And yeah, most of them would be me because of the English speaking.
Yeah.
This is wild.
Here we are, 300 episodes later.
I know. I think our timing was both a blessing and a curse in terms of COVID, because I think it kept us from meeting, but I think so many people found us during that time and had that weird experience of getting to know us at the same time. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. And so many of you are still here, tuning in to hear us ramble on about murder, mystery, the macabre.
Throughout history.
Yeah, don't forget the history.
The history part. We really can't say enough how much we appreciate the Hellions. We just appreciate your support, your messages, your terrible puns in the Facebook group. It is truly the reason that we have made it this far, so thank you.
Yeah. We truly love you guys. So thank you for letting us haunt your earbuds 300 times and counting. And of course, an extra spooky thank you goes out to our Patreon supporters. You all keep this haunted ship afloat. Could there be any more hints what we're going to be talking about?
I was just going to say. It's true, though. Patreon is the reason that we can sift through weird old court transcripts or do genealogy research at 2 a.m. and call it research, not just, insomnia or mental health problems. But seriously, creating a podcast, it comes with a lot of subscriptions to newspapers, genealogy archives, hosting fees, buying books, and our amazing patrons are the reason that we can afford to keep doing this podcast and doing it for free for everyone else. So yeah, if you're not already in our Patreon coven, come join us. We have bonus episodes, Cinema Macabre, stickers, live get-togethers. Okay, enough with the chit-chat.
I think it's okay, though. 300 episodes and it's Spooky Fuckery Month. There's chit-chat to be expected, right?
I do feel like that's a fair point. I do think you've made a very solid point there. So there'll be more chit-chat ahead. Don't worry, they know us.
Yeah.
Let's get into today's topic. Has anyone guessed? Well, probably because of the title. Surprise. Oh no, that's all. That is all has to be. That was too sincerely me laughing. I think that's all. What's the word? It's going to hurt your ear holes when you listen. Sorry. All right. This is our 300th episode, and so we knew we wanted to do something special. And since it also happens to be Spooky Fuckery Month,
SFM,
it felt like the perfect excuse to cover one of the most famously haunted places in the world. She's glamorous, she's historic, she's seen tragedy, and now she's basically a floating ghost hotel. And I am, of course, talking about the RMS Queen Mary, a ship with more ghosts than crew members.
Yeah, the RMS Queen Mary is one of those ships whose very name sounds grand and, just ominous enough, just the right amount of ominous. And I think a ghost haunted my voice cords today. Like, what's going on there? Today, she's permanently moored in Long Beach, California, serving as a floating hotel and a very well-known tourist attraction, but before she was turned into a spooky backdrop for ghost tours and wedding receptions, the Queen Mary was the crown jewel of the Cunard line, considered a technological marvel. She has indeed lived many lives: luxury liner, troop ship, and now haunted relic, and each phase of her existence added another layer to her legend. The story begins in Clydebank, Scotland, at the John Brown and Company shipyard. You need to know that this was the golden age of transatlantic travel. The North Atlantic was basically the world's busiest ocean highway. At the peak of the Great Migration before the First World War, over 1 million people a year crossed from Europe to the United States, and they were mostly crammed into third-class bunks below deck. By the 1920s and 30s, the numbers were still enormous, around 1 to 1.5 million passengers each year, but the purpose had shifted. Strict immigration quotas meant fewer steerage passengers, and the passengers now mostly consisted of tourists, businessmen, diplomats, and the rich and famous, all traveling for comfort rather than survival. Dozens of liners were in service, but only a select few were superliners, those floating palaces. Cunard's Mauretania, White Star's Olympic, the doomed Titanic, Germany's Bremen and Europa, and by the 1930s the French marvel Normandy, to name just a few. And make absolutely no mistake, my dear listeners, these ships were luxurious to the point of kind of absurdity. In first class, you could dance beneath glittering chandeliers, eat 7-course meals prepared by French chefs, or swim in your choice of indoor pools. There were ballrooms, squash courts, Turkish baths, libraries, and suites with more square footage than most New Yorkers had at home. Even second class felt like a respectable hotel, and by the 1930s, third class had improved from the, grim days of steerage to practical but still decent accommodations with dining halls and recreation rooms even. In those days, so the 1920s and 1930s, companies like Cunard and White Star were locked in a rivalry to build the fastest, most luxurious ships on the Atlantic. I just mentioned the French liner Normandy that was dazzling the world with Art Deco design and record-breaking speed, so Cunard needed something, bigger, faster, more impressive, more. We want more. The answer was a new superliner, codename Hull 534, during construction.
Work on the ship began in 1930, but by the following year, everything ground to a halt. The Wall Street crash of 1929 had triggered a worldwide depression, and suddenly, even Cunard couldn't afford to finish the superliner. For months, the half-built behemoth just sat there in Clydebank, a massive steel skeleton on the riverbank, pretty much just wasting away. Eventually, the British government stepped in with a rescue package, but it came with strings attached. Cunard had to merge with its longtime rival, White Star Line, the company still carrying the stain of the sinking of the Titanic. Speaking of stains, another fun fact is today, Cunard Line is owned by Carnival, who of course also own the ship I recently discussed in the Poop Cruise episode of Cinema Macabre.
Speaking of stains!
For a full circle. So...
yeah, that was a stain.
Yeah.
Or several.
Yeah, so to speak. So, yeah. White Star didn't want to be linked, or Cunard didn't want to be linked to White Star, but the deal did go through. And with public money behind it, construction on Hull 534 resumed. This ship was now very much a matter of national pride. Hull 534, such a sexy code name, should be large, powerful, and unmistakably British. Less flamboyant than Normandy, but every inch a queen.
Sorry to interrupt, but speaking of queen, And I love this story because legend has it that Cunard executives intended to name the ship the Queen Victoria, in keeping with the company's tradition of ending ship names with "ia," like Mauritania.
Right.
When they approached King George V for permission to name the vessel after how they said it, England's greatest queen, he assumed they meant his wife, Queen Mary.
Aww.
And really, who was going to correct the king? So the ship became the Queen Mary. Now, whether that story is true or just a bit of marketing spin, who can say? But it's still a great story, I think, worth telling.
I think it's true. I hope it's true. On September 26, 1934, Queen Mary broke the bottle on the ship now named after her. The hull slid down the way, and I'm sure a lot of very wealthy men were sighing in relief. Technically, she was indeed a marvel, over 1,000 feet from bow to stern, 4 propellers driven by steam turbines, and enough horsepower to push all of this steel through the Atlantic swells at more than 30 knots. 1,000 small decisions, steel thickness, hull form, turbine gearing, added up to a ship that could both sprint and survive the North Atlantic at its worst. But the engineering triumph was also dressed in beauty. The interior design favored warm woods, polished metals, and restrained modernism, less French razzle-dazzle and more British gravitas. First-class travelers passed through the grand entrance, swept down staircases into lounges paneled with rare veneers, ate beneath sculpted reliefs, and ordered cocktails at the various bars. There were 2 swimming pools, a squash court, a massive dining room, a ballroom, a library, a music room, writing rooms, and a hospital. Second and third class passengers had their own, simpler but still comfortable public rooms and accommodations. I know this all sounds really tame when you compare it to today's standard of a cruise ship, but for that time, it was the height of understated elegance and comfort.
The ship entered service in May 1936 and almost immediately turned the Atlantic into a racetrack. Newspapers tracked crossing times like sports scores. Passengers tracked the thrill of being first. The Queen Mary captured the blue ribbon, the unofficial crown for the fastest westbound crossing. And then they lost it again to the Normandy. And then they won it back again in 1938, inching the average speed higher than anyone had believed a vessel that size could actually sustain. She also did what liners exist to do, move people with efficiency and style. Film stars, aristocrats, authors, business magnates, politicians, anyone who needed to cross with some fanfare booked a cabin. Want a few examples? I can give you quite a few. Clark Gable, Greta Garbo, Fred Astaire, and no, I'm not quoting We Didn't Start the Fire or Vogue. Who else? Marlene Dietrich with her razor-sharp cheekbones and husky voice, probably wearing those scandalous pants. And it wasn't just Hollywood. Writers like Noel Coward, the playwright, and Wit, who never met a martini he didn't like, apparently. Also, Cole Porter, the composer of Anything Goes. Annie, wanna sing it?
I don't. I did that play in high school, though.
You did?
I did. I have a picture I'll share on Patreon, maybe.
Wasn't it also in Ghosts?
Yes.
They used it in Ghosts, right?
Yeah.
So they were launching in the cocktail bars, and then also the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, the abdicated King Edward VIII and his twice divorced American wife, Wallis Simpson.
The naughty abdicator wasn't the only royal sailing on the Queen Mary, though. One of the most famous voyages the Queen Mary ever made came in 1939, when she carried King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, the future Queen Mother, across the Atlantic. It was actually the first time a reigning British monarch had ever set foot in the United States. The trip was historic, meant to strengthen the relationship between Britain and America on the eve of what everyone could see was shaping up to be another world war. The royal couple boarded in Southampton, accompanied by their daughters, Elizabeth and Margaret, for part of the journey, though the young princesses did not make the transatlantic trip. When the Queen Mary docked in New York, crowds, packed the waterfront, craning for glimpses of the king and queen as they descended the gangway. It was an absolute media circus.
I mean, can you imagine the first time the British king and queen came to the colonies, basically, to the former colonies, right? I mean, that's wild to think about.
It is.
And it's not even that long ago.
It's not.
Yeah. And, of course, Winston Churchill himself treated the ship like a floating office, dictating speeches mid-Atlantic on his way to meet Roosevelt. But, of course, that was a little bit later during the war. Because in September of 1939, the Second World War began, and the commanders requisitioned Britain's greatest assets afloat. The Queen Mary sailed to a shipyard, lost her bright livery to a coat of dull, stealthy grey, and shed her luxuries for troop bunks stacked where ballrooms had been. She became, in look and purpose, a completely different ship, the Grey Ghost. The nickname fit her speed and her new strategy. Too fast for most U-boats to intercept, and she usually steamed alone, zigzagging through the ocean with thousands of lives aboard. At her peak configurations, she could carry roughly 15,000 troops on a single voyage, which is an abstract number to even think about.
It really is. That's so many people. Like, you know, I go on cruises, and I think the biggest cruise I've ever been on, like the biggest ship I've ever been on, was maybe 4,000 people, which is too many people for me. 15,000 is...
15,000, yeah.
That's wild. And I'm really glad that they kept it, because these, I know they're just material things, but these were things I don't like weird, fancy stuff like this because it's fancy. You know, I know it's material, but these things were handmade with skill and pride by just artists who had skills that we don't even really use anymore. And I know not everyone has the same grandma taste. My friends have been making fun of me for my, love of mahogany furniture and laced doilies since college, and it's fine. But even if these kind of things are not to your taste, you know, I think everyone can appreciate the art that has been lost in war. Not specifically here, because fortunately they could save it. But it's just a reminder, isn't it, of all the little tiny ways that we lose art in war. So anyway, the ship's crew adapted from serving cocktails to serving rations, from stewarding to crowd management. She ferried Allied troops to and from theaters of war and carried prisoners under guard. Winston Churchill would later credit the two queens, Mary and her younger running mate Elizabeth, with shortening the war effort by enabling the rapid movement of whole divisions. Hyperbole? Maybe. Wartime brought danger. On October 2nd, 1942, during anti-submarine zigzagging off the coast of Ireland, the Queen Mary collided with the light cruiser HMS Curacoa that was acting as an escort. The liner's mass and speed proved catastrophic. She sliced the cruiser in two. Understanding orders not to stop for anything that could expose her to U-boats, the Queen Mary was forced to continue on and leave hundreds of sailors from Curacoa to perish before the rescue ships could arrive. The Queen Mary just whoosh right past them. Must have been, you can't even imagine how terrible that would have been for everybody involved.
Yeah. And there's nothing you can do because you have orders.
That's it.
You can't just say, well, no.
Awful. By 1945, victory was in sight, and the Queen Mary began another transformation. Out went the bunks, back came those veneers, the chandeliers, the carpets, and the china. She resumed transatlantic service, welcoming peacetime travelers in a world irrevocably changed. The 1950s were a last golden decade for great liners, summer crossings still busy, winter crossings grim but steady. The Queen Mary never again had the field to herself, though. New rivals emerged. The American United States grabbed the speed crown, but the real competition wasn't a ship at all. It was the jet airliner. In 1958, regular transatlantic jet service began. What had been a 5-day journey became an overnight commute. Liners still had glamour, but glamour no longer beat the clock. Passenger numbers eroded year by year. Cargo and mail shifted to air. The economics soured. The Queen Mary remained famous, but fame alone can't keep boilers lit. Cunard tried new itineraries, winter cruises, off-season charters, anything to help keep the staterooms booked. But the writing on the wall was clear. The age of the routine ocean crossing was ending. Queen Mary's retirement was managed with ceremony. In 1967, Cunard announced the ship's withdrawal from service and accepted a bid from Long Beach, California, to convert the liner into a floating attraction. The choice had pragmatism, an all-year tourist climate, major metro market, and a certain American flair for spectacle. On her final passenger voyage from Southampton, she didn't head west for New York. She turned south, circled the tip of South America. The Panama Canal locks were too narrow for her beam at that time. Interestingly, a second, wider canal has just recently opened in 2016. So, if she'd gone through now, it would fit. But back then, no dice. So she went around, steamed up the Pacific coast to a hero's welcome. On December 9th, 1967, the Queen Mary arrived in Long Beach to cheering crowds and camera flashes, a veteran of 1,001 Atlantic crossings.
What a poetic number, right?
I know. I'd like to have that many. That's my favorite. I like the transatlantic crossings. And that's where the Queen Mary is today. In Long Beach, California, 3 of the 4 propellers were removed. Machinery spaces were emptied or repurposed. Public rooms were adapted for exhibits, events, and hotel operations. Some spaces survived with their personality mostly intact. For example, the observation bar or the first-class dining room. Others were rearranged beyond recognition. I guess that's the compromise of preservation.
Listen, you can sandblast all the rust you want, you can rearrange the furniture, and you can strip out the engines. But what do you do with the things you can't see? You know, the memories, the tragedies, the lives that possibly ended mid-voyage. Those don't go anywhere. And that's exactly what we are here for today. Because the Queen Mary is known as one of the most haunted ships in the world.
I mean, we talked about ghost ships way back in our first or second spooky fuckery month. But this is
I think so,
a completely different kind of ghost ship. This is a ghost ship. It is spooky.
Exactly. At least according to legend, rumors, and lore.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Ghost tour guides like to say the Queen Mary is home to as many as, please hold onto the seat, 150 spirits.
Oh, that's too many, Johanna. It's exhausting.
That's too many spirits.
It's too many.
To be fair, that number might be a bit of a marketing ploy. But what's undeniable is that several of the ship's ghosts have names and death certificates apparently attached to them. The tragedies tied to the Queen Mary stretch all the way back to her beginnings, because in June of 1934, while she was still under construction, a worker named Malcolm Aitken fell from the scaffolding and was killed. Just 2 years later, after her triumphant maiden voyage, crew member Arthur John Francis Golding died on the return leg to the UK, when he fractured his skull in an accident on board. And of course, it didn't stop there. Even her retirement run in 1967 wasn't free of death. As the ship steamed past the coast of Rio de Janeiro on her way to Long Beach, a crewman named Leonard Horsburgh suffered heat stroke that triggered a cerebral hemorrhage, and he died before the ship ever reached the final port. So from the first month of her construction to her very last voyage, death undeniably has been part of the Queen Mary's story. Now add in there the wartime service, when she was packed with tens of thousands of young soldiers, some of whom never made it home, and it's definitely not hard to understand why people say the ship is still crowded. Some paranormal enthusiasts even claim the Queen Mary sits on a vortex, kind of a spiritual revolving door that lets ghosts wander in and out. Whether you believe that or not, it definitely sounds cool, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Spiritual vortex.
A vortex? Yeah. I think that's like film shorthand for we don't know how to explain the haunting, so we're gonna go ahead and put a glowing hole in the sky. Ooh, not a vortex. Where's Bill Murray when you need him?
Yeah, it's a dash of The Shining also in there, I think. Except instead of creepy twins, you've got phantom sailors hanging around door 13.
If you wait long enough, the creepy children will show up, though. It's a beautiful segue. Thank you so much.
There are creepy children. You're welcome. I tried my best.
Yeah, because Johanna's right. One of the most notorious locations on the Queen Mary is buried deep in the engine room, a watertight bulkhead simply known as door 13. Usually, these doors are lifesavers. The ship had more than a dozen of them, each weighing several tons, designed to seal shut at the push of a button if the hull was ever breached. They could hold back flooding and keep the ship afloat. The problem in this case were the drills. Crew were required to practice moving through the doors at speed, a kind of a fire drill at sea. The doors would close automatically, powered by hydraulics, and anyone caught halfway through had only a few seconds to get clear. You can guess where this is going. Over the years, several crew members were injured here, but the most infamous case happened in 1966. A young fireman, sometimes identified as 18-year-old John Petter, was caught in door 13 during one of these routine drills. This is an article that was posted on John Petter's findagrave.com page. We couldn't track it to an original source, so please take this with a grain of salt, or 10, because we're not 100% sure of the veracity, but we still think it is interesting. And to be fair, many times what you do find on Find a Grave is accurate and verifiable.
Factual.
This time we just couldn't, so here we go. Quote, John Petter was born in Skipton, a market town in North Yorkshire, England. At 18, he decided a life at sea was for him, so he joined the Cunard Line, became a crew member aboard the RMS Queen Mary. A dream job that ended tragically on July 10, 1966. He worked as a fireman/cleaner and was involved in bilge pumping duties at the time of his death. During a routine emergency drill, Petter was crushed in two by a watertight door, number 13 in Shaft Alley, a corridor leading to the ship's propellers. The door closed automatically as part of the drill. A bell sounded and a light flashed, giving ample warning, so his being crushed in the door mystified crew then and people ever since. He was found by a refrigeration greaser named Cripps, blood trickling down the nose, turning blue due to a lack of oxygen. The ship's doctor was called. Even though he knew Petter was dead, he gave him an injection of morphine in case the door opening resulted in his return to consciousness, even briefly, but it didn't. That's the detail right now, for me, Johanna, that gives it, that I was like, oh, that's interesting. I do feel like this might have actually happened, and that was really a thoughtful thing to have done. The article continues, quote, he was rushed to the Queen Mary's infirmary, where Petter was formally pronounced dead. His body was placed into the Queen Mary's freezer, which the chef had to empty out to make room for, and his body was returned to England per his instruction in his employee file, should death occur, with the alternative burial at sea. He was buried quietly in a cemetery with other family members soon after his arrival in England. The event never made headlines. Death at sea was not uncommon. It wasn't until the RMS Queen Mary was decommissioned and became a tourist attraction that its macabre past was used to create ghost stories that came to public consciousness. End quote. Okay, so remember that last sentence, because we're going to be circling back to that eventually. Anyhow, since John's incredibly tragic death, guides and paranormal investigators insist that Petter never really left the engine room. Visitors describe seeing a tall young man in blue coveralls, his face often obscured, walking the passageway as if still on duty. Some say he even speaks, politely asking if they've seen his mother. Others just feel a chill. Sudden icy blasts of air in a boiler room that should be stiflingly hot, the clang of machinery that isn't running, and the sense of being watched from the shadows.
I just got goosebumps.
I know.
So I hate this. I mean, I don't hate the story. It's thing, but I hate the goosebumps.
I know. The part I don't like,
things.
the only part in here that rings fake to me is the part where he's asking for his mother. That doesn't make sense in any way for any part of the story.
It sounds like a mix between a residual haunting and an intelligent haunting then, though.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Definitely. And in case you're new here, when we talk about the different kinds of hauntings, paranormal investigators usually divide hauntings into a few different categories. First, you have residual hauntings. Think of them as just a recording that replays. Footsteps in a hallway, splashing in a pool that hasn't had water in it for 50 years. The ghost isn't really aware of you. It's just history stuck on a loop. Basically, the paranormal equivalent of hitting repeat on a sad mixtape. Then there are intelligent hauntings, where the spirit seems aware of you. These are the ones that respond to questions, move objects, or occasionally ask if you've seen their mother. Polite, but unsettling. I'm trying to think of it as creepy instead of devastatingly sad. Just unsettling. Just unfortunate. Like running into your ex at the grocery store when you're not wearing any makeup and also you have a cold. It's fine. And finally, the poltergeist activity. That's German for noisy ghost, poltergeist. And it's less about apparitions, more about banging, knocking, doors slamming, objects flying around a room. For more information, in-depth information on this particular ghost and all the other above-mentioned types of hauntings, do check out our Enfield Poltergeist and Amityville Horror episodes, because we do get a lot more into the specificity of the different kinds of hauntings, I think, and like, ooh, could it be string theory? Do we just not understand the science?
Yeah. Also, when we did the hauntings of the wives of Henry, didn't we do an episode on that one? Yeah.
Yep.
Now, if the engine room is the most dangerous part of the Queen Mary, the first-class swimming pool was once probably one of the most glamorous. Which is, I mean, everything in first class was kind of glamorous.
VIP is always better, Johanna.
In the 1930s, very few ocean liners had pools at all, and this one was a showpiece. Now, please let me paint a picture in your ear holes.
Not my ear holes.
Sorry. 2 stories tall, lined with Art Deco tiles in pale blues and greens, with chrome railings that gleamed under elegant lighting. First-class passengers could take a dip in seawater pumped directly from the Atlantic, then retreat to marble changing rooms with ornate showers and a viewing gallery above. Did they view the changing rooms from above? That's kind of creepy. No. I mean, obviously the pool had a viewing gallery, not the changing rooms. Anyway, the whole space was a place to be seen in your most fashionable bathing costume. Of course, today the pool is drained and it has been closed to the public for decades. After the ship was retired to Long Beach, the complicated plumbing and filtration systems for the pool fell into disrepair. Moisture seeped into the walls, the elegant tiles cracked and crumbled, and inspectors eventually found structural damage, which was severe enough to make the space very unsafe. Then add in probably asbestos in the old insulation and in the old flooring, and you can see why the pools were sealed off decades ago. So now the pool sits empty, it's bone dry and off limits to the public. The once bright tiles are cracked and faded, and the air smells of damp concrete. And the only water you'll find is the one leaking from the walls, dripping down from the walls. And yet, this empty, echoing chamber has become one of the most haunted spots on the ship, allegedly. Visitors and staff alike have reported phantoms splashing in the dry pool, the sound of water lapping against tile, and wet footprints leading away from the edge. Wet footprints on bone-dry flooring. Sometimes you can hear laughter, light and childlike, echoing off the walls when there are no children aboard. Other times it's quiet weeping of a little girl known to the guides and investigators as Jackie. The story is that Jackie drowned in the pool back in its working days, though records don't show a death there. Skeptics say she's just a legend that grew out of decades of retelling, but believers insist that she makes her presence very much known. Some investigators even claim to have captured her voice on tape, answering questions with giggles or a plaintive "Mummy?"
Nope. No, thank you. I hate that so much. I hate it. It's basically the paranormal version of Marco Polo. You just don't want to be it.
No, you want to be Marco?
Nope. Mm-mm.
And she isn't the only spirit said to linger by the pool. There's also the so-called lady in the swimsuit, which I think is self-explanatory. So she's an apparition of a young woman in a 1930s bathing costume, and guests and staff have seen her strolling casually near the stairs or the dressing room entrance, as though she were still about to enjoy her holiday. She never speaks, she just drifts through, vanishing when approached.
It's exactly the kind of ghost I want to see. Yeah. I want to see lady in a swimsuit or like lady in a white dress.
Not giggling.
I don't want to see giggling child. No, thank you.
Mummy?
I hate it so much. If the engine room and pools are the ship's haunted public spaces, then Stateroom B340 is her private chamber of horrors.
I hate that room. I don't like it.
No, nobody likes B340. So you're going to hate it too. Let me tell you all about it. So for decades, this cabin was considered so unnervingly active that the ship's management actually closed it to guests for a while. Again, remember this because we're going to circle back to it. For many believers in the paranormal, the fact that the room was locked down and not available to the public was the ultimate proof that there must be something really bad going on. After all, they do make their money by renting rooms and giving ghost tours. Imagine how bad the reports must have been for them to say, you know what, actually, let's just go ahead and lock that one up. Let's not get any revenue from that whatsoever. Let's just pretend that we can't go in there. So there are many, many stories from B340, and they all share certain patterns. Guests who have stayed in B340 complained of covers being violently pulled off them in the middle of the night, lights switching on and off by themselves, and faucets suddenly running full force with no one touching them.
I would really, if I'm cold and I'm up in my blankets and I'm comfortable and then you pull the blanket off of me, please don't do that. That's so mean. I get so cranky.
Beanie does that. These things have all happened to me. But mostly it's the dogs. Not the faucet. I'm so annoyed. Beanie just ripped a hole in my duvet. If you don't get up, she grabs your blankets and starts to try to pull them off of you. But if Opus is on the bed while she's trying to yank the covers off of you, then she's just tearing into all of our blankets have holes in them now. It's fine. She's the reason we can't. No, they're both the reason we can't have nice things. Who needs nice things? No one, not me. Anyway.
So basically you're sleeping in rags.
Yeah. It's fine. It all goes with my haunted Victorian ghost vibe that I like so much. So, yeah, none of this is good. None of this is good. Some said they woke up to find the figure of a man standing at the foot of their bed, glaring silently at them until he vanished. I wouldn't like that.
No.
Others described a suffocating pressure, as if invisible hands were holding them down against the mattress. Sleep paralysis.
It's the truth.
And many speak of feeling like there's an intense anger and rage in that room. I hate it when a room feels like that. Like, ooh, it's too ragey in here. Let's get out of here.
No, I don't like angry ghosts.
We don't care for an angry ghost.
Can we agree? The worst are giggling child ghosts asking for the mummy, and the second worst are angry, ragey ghosts.
Yeah, it's true. So for years, room B340 became nothing more than a locked door in a long hallway mentioned by tour guides, pointed out by paranormal investigators as the one you weren't allowed to see, which of course made everyone want to see it even more.
Yeah, that's like me in Graceland.
Yes. And it helped the lore to grow. Some claimed a passenger had died violently in the room during the war years, possibly a murder-suicide, though records don't back that up. Others said the activity was linked to a soldier who'd lost his mind on board. Finally, in 2018, management leaned into the legend. They completely refurbished B340, stocked it with a Ouija board, tarot cards,
Of course.
and ghost hunting gear, because what could possibly go wrong in that scenario? And then they reopened it as a paranormal attraction you could actually book for the night. Guests still report knocks on the walls, whispers in the dark, and that classic sensation of being watched when they're very much alone. Reviews are split between nothing happened and never again, which is probably exactly what the marketing department was hoping for.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. All right, let's take a look at the Queen's Salon. Back in the day, this was the ship's grand ballroom, where the first-class passengers danced under chandeliers and tried very hard to outdazzle each other. The Queen's Salon was the heart of first-class life on the Queen Mary, and honestly, it was breathtaking. I mean, it still is. You can have your wedding reception there now. I love it.
Gorgeous.
So the whole room was wrapped in warm, gleaming wood paneling, not just oak, but this exotic inlays like Indian rosewood and Australian walnut. And the wood was chosen so that the different grains and colors played off each other. Then there were huge windows that lined one wall, so by day the room was drenched in light, in sunlight, and by night the windows reflected the glow of the chandeliers and the wall sconces. The ceiling soared overhead with these clean, geometric Art Deco details. Nothing too fuzzy, just elegant lines that made the whole space feel very modern and impossibly tall. And beneath it all stretched a parquet floor that seemed to go on forever. Polished to such a shine you could probably check your lipstick in it. At one end of the room there was a stage where the orchestra would play, and at the other, this massive decorative mural. Everything in this space was designed to impress, but also to flatter. The lighting was so soft and golden, like all the people looked amazing, like a filter. It was glamorous in all the right ways. Even now, it still has that, faded glamour about it, and apparently, not all the dancers left. The most famous ghost there is known as the Woman in White. Again, very self-explanatory. People say they've seen her drifting across the floor in a long evening gown, looking like she's straight out of a 1930s movie. Sometimes she just glides past. Sometimes she fades before anyone can get close. There are also stories of phantom piano music when the room is empty, and even couples dancing in the shadows. Compared to the Rage and Anger room, B340, the feeling in the Queen's Salon is overwhelmingly gentle. It's not door slamming or bed sheets yanked off of you. It's music, it's laughter, it's a woman, looking gorgeous, lost in a dance that never ends. And I love that.
I'm down for that. I enjoy that idea very much. Moving on to an idea I like substantially less, the nurseries. The Queen Mary actually had 3 children's playrooms, one for each class. We can't let the children intermingle, for the love of God.
No. And the parents had so many other things to do, like getting drunk.
Right. First-class kids got the biggest and the most spectacular playroom, of course. Their playroom was set up on the promenade deck right near the observation bar. It was 40 feet long, bright with 5 huge windows, and completely over the top in the best way. There was a big slide, or chute, built for the boys' side that landed right in the middle of the room, with little caves tucked underneath. The girls' side had a massive dollhouse, bookcases, and tables for crafts.
Of course. Boys can slide, and girls, don't you dare go sliding. You have to play with the dollhouse.
No, the girls can't slide and the boys can't read. Yeah. It's fun. Doesn't everybody like crafts? I'm sorry, but
Doesn't everybody love shoots and reading?
Yes. And dolls.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but, toy soldiers are dolls. It reminds me of my favorite every Christmas. There's that thing that says, is it a boy's toy or a girl's toy? And it says, do you operate it with your genitals? Yes or no? And if it's yes, then this is not a children's toy and is not appropriate for children. And if it's no, you don't operate it with your genitals, then the answer is this toy is appropriate for any child. And it's so true, isn't it? There were murals of teddy bears tumbling down slides, fairy tale scenes on the walls, even a ceiling with an illuminated sun and twinkling stars. One corner had a tiny Wild West log cabin, Another, a parrot that glowed in bright colors.
How many corners were there?
There were so many corners in this playroom. It was an octagonal shape, 40 feet long. Yeah, and there was even a working miniature aquarium full of tropical fish. Kids could also push a button to run their own little video movie projector. They could run their own movie projector, or they could peek through windows painted with wild animals on display. This was meant to be a whole world in one room, and it worked. When the royal family toured the ship before her maiden voyage, a 10-year-old Princess Elizabeth and her sister Margaret were the first to try the slide.
Of course, the little princesses can go and slide.
I'm just glad they let girls down the slide.
Yeah, well, they're princesses, so what they're going to say.
I would have thought that would have been even worse, though. Like, no, you're a princess, no slide for you. It's like how Miss America isn't allowed to scooch.
Yeah, but I mean, if they were in there with like some steward, what is he going to tell them? Like, you can't slide, you know what I mean?
I don't know, maybe.
And we know how both the queen, the future queen, and Margaret were. I think you don't.
They did both grow up to absolutely love being on the water, so I think it probably bodes well, right? So now the second-class kids, let's talk about them. So you've got your first-class kids. They're set up in a way that they will be entertained for the entirety of the crossing, and their parents are never going to have to check in on them. That's the nanny's job anyway.
Yeah, you just drop them off there, and they're just going to look at all the corners in the room. Like,
that's right.
Gonna take a few days.
It. Totally. Second-class kids, though, that was a pretty sweet setup. Their playroom was on the main deck, and it was right next to the cocktail lounge, so very convenient for the parents. It had a model train running around 3 sides of the room, and it was complete with stations and tunnels. Plus, there was an airplane that flew along wires near the ceiling. The walls were bright with painted murals, and the floor was inlaid with little racetracks and game boards. Then there was the third-class playroom down on Deck B. It was smaller and simpler, paneled in sycamore and oak. You know, oak paneling. Pedestrian, but still charming. It's so funny to me.
They had a pile of coal.
That's right. Down on that deck, they got to pretend to be maids or work in the coal room. Come on, kids.
Well, the children are yearning for the mines. We know it.
I'm going to wear my pants. Yearning for the mine. I can't. Okay. I need more. Okay. All right. I just love how it's like it was smaller and simpler, just oak and sycamore paneling.
Yeah. I mean,
so pedestrian. My God. How did they survive, these children? The walls had murals of Sinbad the Sailor. The furniture was red and blue, and the toys included a rocking horse, a blackboard, and chairs shaped like an elephant and a bear.
I really thought you were just going to say, and chairs. That's it.
Chairs. You know, there was one bossy little bitch of a girl who was like, I'm the teacher. Everybody sit down.
Oh my God, definitely. Ugh. There's always one.
It was cheerful and practical. And it gave kids a place of their own on a ship that was really made for adults. So it's nice that everyone had the space. After the war, the playrooms were shuffled around, downsized, and by the time the ship came to Long Beach, they were dismantled completely. Today, the toys are gone, the walls are bare, and the rooms sit quiet. Or at least, they're supposed to. Visitors and staff have reported the sound of children's laughter drifting out of empty playrooms. Sometimes it's soft giggles, sometimes full-on shrieks of delight. Other times, it's crying, sharp, sudden, and very close, the kind of sound that makes every hair on the back of your neck stand up.
No,
thank you. Some people say it's the same spirit as Jackie, the little girl supposedly tied to the swimming pool. Not literally attached. Not literally either, but you know what I mean. Others think... This is terrible. I don't think Jackie ever existed.
No.
I don't think Jackie is real,
no.
But that's fine. Others think there are multiple children spirits, perhaps children who died of illness on board, or simply the echoes of hundreds of kids who once passed through. On ghost tours, People have left toys in one of the nurseries overnight and returned to find them moved, or heard a faint rolling of a ball across the floor when the room was locked and emptied.
As we said before, the most disturbing are ghost children and the sounds of ghost children, sounds of children in general, if there are not supposed to be any children, even if they sound happy. It's like, no, thank you. I rather have angry ghost than ghost child. I don't know why. It's just...
It's a trope for a reason, though, right? I think it's very primally like lizard brain disturbing to think that a child is to be feared rather than taken care of. Like when I was studying abnormal psych back in the day, it was always these really unusual cases of truly violent sociopathic children who are like that as children.
Like Mary Bell.
And there's something so, like, you're supposed to want to protect them with everything, even children you don't know or care about personally. So when it flips like that, it's just, I don't like it.
No, it's...
It's bad.
So far we've talked about the big haunted hotspots. But the truth is, people say you don't need to be in any of those rooms to run into something strange. The Queen Mary has this reputation that the entire ship is haunted. I mean, 150 ghosts, they have to be like everywhere, basically.
It's a lot. It's a lot of ghosts.
Guests and staff report shadowy figures in the corridors. You know, the whole dark shapes that pass by and then vanish into the walls. You'll be walking down one of those endless hallways, the kind lined with identical cabin doors, and suddenly you hear footsteps behind you, and then you turn around and there's no one there. Or worse, the footsteps keep following even though you already checked and you know you're alone. Cold spots are another favorite apparently on the ship.
Yeah, just like at the Dell.
The ship should feel warm and stuffy in places, but instead people hit these blasts of icy air, like walking straight through somebody else's space. Then there's doors that slam shut in empty cabins or swing open on their own, sometimes repeatedly, as if someone's trying to get your attention. And then there are the whispers. Low voices just at the edge of hearing, often in cabins that are supposed to be unoccupied. Some guests swear they've heard knocks on their walls or even conversations happening in the room next door, only to find out later that the cabin was locked and empty the whole time. Now, given all these stories, it's no surprise that the Queen Mary has become a magnet for paranormal investigators. She's been featured on, I think, just about every ghost show you can think of, Unsolved Mysteries in the 80s, Most Haunted from the UK, Ghost Adventures, and countless documentaries. If a TV crew owns a night vision camera, chances are they filmed on the Queen Mary.
Can we watch one of those together? Can we do like a group on
Maybe we can do that
YouTube?
For Halloween live get-together on
fun?
Patreon. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking would be fun. I haven't watched Most Haunted from the UK in forever, but they used to be very fun and over the top.
Investigators have captured EVPs, you know, these electronic voice recordings where a question is asked and an answer shows up later on tape. Or like an interpretation of an answer, I think, because, people claim to have heard, obviously, children's voices. Mommy? Knocks, even a man groaning near door 13. I don't like that.
I don't like the groaning, but on a ship, there's so much groaning.
Yeah.
I think all groaning is immediately discounted. So.
Yeah, true. Also the ice cold spots and so on a big ship, like almost 100-year-old ship. But what do I know?
I don't know.
What else? Sudden temperature spikes or drops. Shadows caught on camera. I don't know whether you believe in the science of ghost haunting or not. The ship is one of those places where equipment always seems to light up. You can book official ghost tours that lead you through the hotspots, you know, door 13, the pool, B340. And if you're feeling brave, you can stay overnight in some of the cabins. The ship is now kind of part tourist attraction, part paranormal pilgrimage site.
So basically, the Queen Mary went from being one of the fastest ships in the world to one of the busiest haunted houses, which, I mean, honestly, that's a pretty good second act, right?
Yeah. I think that's a good retirement. Yeah. I could live with that, yeah. Listen, it wouldn't be us, especially on our 300th episode, if we wouldn't spoil our own fun, at least just a little bit, with some not so spooky facts. Remember when we told you that we'll circle back to certain things?
Yeah, I think it's unavoidable that, as is so often the case with our episodes, we go into a spooky topic just to ruin it for ourselves and for you. So, here we go. All of this next information comes from a very interesting article from worldofcruising.co.uk. It's titled, quote, "The Real Haunting of RMS Queen Mary is a Corporate One," by Gillian I don't know if it's Gillian or Gillian, because I've actually heard it pronounced both ways.
Yeah, I don't know.
Carmody. So Gillian Carmody. And as always, you'll find the link in our sources. So what's important to know is that all of this ghost lore, all of these ghost stories, they really only exploded once the Queen Mary retired and settled in Long Beach. And so the timing is a little suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
It's really convenient
It's
in a way,
little
right?
problematic.
Yeah.
And so if you visit the ship today, you're going to quickly notice the ghost angle is impossible to avoid. Her official website currently lists more haunted tours than historical ones. You've got the Haunted Encounters Tour, the Paranormal Ship Walk, the Grey Ghost Project, and even a seance experience called 57 Ghosts. That's not an accident. Also, that's too many ghosts.
It's too many ghosts. Like 13 ghosts was already too many. 57 is
I don't like it. Since the day she opened in Long Beach, the ship has been a financial nightmare. The Queen Mary burned through owner after owner, each convinced that they could make this grand old ocean liner turn a profit. Airlines, hotel chains, real estate firms, even Disney all took their shot, and almost all of them walked away broke. Not Disney, obviously.
No.
The early years looked promising. When the Queen Mary opened for tours in 1971, 1.5 million people visited in that first year alone. It seemed like a sure bet. A few years later, Hyatt Hotels was running her as a 400-room hotel, and for a time, she was a genuine attraction. But by the end of the 1970s, interest had waned, repairs were mounting, and the corporate musical chairs began. In 1988, the ship was sold to Disney. And here's where things get interesting. Disney wasn't really buying the Queen Mary for the ship itself. They were after the land around her, with plans for a massive $2 billion theme park. That's 1988 $2 billion theme park, called Port Disney. It was going to be a futuristic resort with hotels, a marina, and even a monorail.
Monorail.
Okay. Anyway, the project collapsed within a couple of years. The state wanted higher environmental mitigation costs than Disney was willing to pay, and at the same time, the Queen Mary's own repair bill was ballooning into the tens of millions. Disney walked away in 1992, but not before they'd done something clever. They launched the ship's very first ghost tours. It's almost funny when you think about it. The Queen Mary's haunted reputation, the thing that now defines her in the public imagination, can be traced back to Disney marketing. In the early 1990s, they debuted a tour called Haunted Passages, complete with brochures that showed a child being dragged down a hallway by a ghost.
God, that escalated.
Which is... Did you see that one coming? The timing is telling. The most famous ghost stories, the ones we've all heard about Jackie in the pool, or all the crazy things happening in B340, they don't show up in any of Cunard's records when the ship was actually at sea. They only start cropping up after she's moored in Long Beach, right around the time Disney needed a gimmick.
I mean, it's obvious because they moored her over a vortex. Didn't you pay attention before?
They knew where they were putting that ship, allegedly. And the stories themselves don't always stand up to scrutiny. Surprise, surprise, surprise. There are no records of a little girl named Jackie drowning anywhere in either pool. There's no sign in newspapers or company logs of a dismembered body being found in Stateroom B340. In fact, that stateroom was only created after the ship came to Long Beach when 3 cabins were merged into one.
It's also worth knowing that part of B340's haunted reputation may have been manufactured, literally. Apparently, allegedly, when Disney owned the Queen Mary in the late 1980s, they apparently experimented with turning the cabin into what was essentially a prototype haunted mansion at sea thing. So they wired the room with effects meant to spook overnight guests, creaking floorboards, faucets that turned on by themselves, things moving just enough to make you wonder what the fuck is going on here. I think the idea is really clever and really does sound a lot
good.
like Disney.
People would have loved it.
Yeah, but for some reason it was not profitable. Maybe it was the wrong timing. I don't know. I think nowadays, if they would have just stuck it out now that everything like dark, mysterious, gothic is so in, they would have really, But they shut down the experiment because they didn't make too much revenue immediately. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, we're not saying that visitors didn't have strange experiences. People do report cold spots, odd noises, or the sense of being watched. But whether that's ghosts or just the power of suggestion in a creaky old steel hull, we can't really say. What we can say is that the marketing machine has had almost as much of a hand in building the Queen Mary's haunted reputation as any supposed spirit. And why not? For every owner who tried to run the Queen Mary as a straight hotel or museum, it was pretty much a financial disaster. Maintenance costs are... Listen, if you're going to cry about the cost of your new roof, as we did last year, just be glad you don't own a 90-year-old cruise ship. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
A 2017 marine survey estimated the ship needs $289 million in urgent repairs just to stay afloat. Ghost tours, Halloween events, YouTube thrill seekers, they all keep the lights on at least a little longer. And we'll leave you with this. At her launch in 1934, a British psychic, Lady Mabel Fortescue Harrison, predicted that the Queen Mary would, quote, know her greatest fame and popularity when she never sails another mile or carries another fare-paying passenger, end quote. Maybe that prophecy came true after all.
And look, I think it's totally fair to be skeptical. A lot of the big headline stories don't hold up if you look closely. But it's also okay to believe that a place with this much history might hold onto some of it in ways we can't explain. You can be a full-on ghost hunter, or you can just roll your eyes at EMF meters. Either way, the Queen Mary is still fascinating.
And honestly, both camps keep her afloat, don't they? Believers buy ghost tour tickets, skeptics come for the Art Deco interiors, and together they make sure this ship doesn't end up rusting away in a shipbreaker's yard. I want to go and visit for both reasons. Not during peak season, and I don't really care about the haunted room for reasons we just discussed. But I do think it would be an interesting place to stay, and I'm open to the possibility of things happening. The one thing I did want to mention, my sneaky little tip here for our listeners, Betty's Tea Room. If you have the chance to visit the magnificent city of York in England, then you want to visit Betty's Tea Room. If you can do the necessary flight of stairs to get to the second floor, or what the UK calls their first floor, but that's a whole different Patreon discussion for another time. So what you want to do is you want to plan to book the bookable afternoon tea, and then you make your reservation for lunch in advance. Then when you get there, you walk past the long line of people queuing up for their delicious scones. They're known as fat rascals. They have like a face made out of currants. And you go up to the restaurant, and that is where you will have the most delicious teas, sandwiches, and desserts. It's way more food than you think. And don't worry if you have dietary stuff. I was like, I can only eat the chicken sandwiches. And they were like, great, we'll just keep the chicken sandwiches coming. The reason I'm telling you this is because the founder of Betty's Tea Room, Frederick Belmont, had sailed on the maiden voyage of the RMS Queen Mary, and he was so taken with its absolutely gorgeous Art Deco interiors that he decided to recreate something just like it for his brand new York tea room. So he commissioned the same London craftsmen who built the ship's interiors to create a similar, luxurious, and glamorous design for what they would call the Belmont Room, which opened in 1937. And today, you can sit there and have an absolutely wonderful experience. My dad and Paul, we went when we were all over there for my dad's 80th a few years ago, and we were going because I had heard it was the most amazing tea, and it was the thing I picked to plan for Misty. And my dad and Paul weren't really looking forward to it, but afterward, they all said that it was a highlight of the trip. And it was okay that we were in a really beautiful place, listening to live grand piano. There's a pianist there that you can put a little money in the jar and ask them to play something for you, that kind of thing. It's beautiful. And it was fine that we were wearing orthopedic sneakers and travel clothes. There were people dressed like us, other people dressed up. It was around 45 pounds a person. So if your budget allows, totally worth every penny. It was a highlight of the trip. Just remember, it's up a flight of stairs and the restrooms are up another flight, so be advised of that. But it's the closest I have ever come to experiencing the Queen Mary. I'll share the photos I have. It's a cool experience if you can go, and now, having talked about it, I want to go back and look at all the pictures again. So yeah, I think no matter what side you fall on, believer, skeptic, or I just came for the cocktails in the observation bar, there's room for everyone on the Queen Mary.
I think so.
I would love to go together.
Yeah.
There's so many places I just want to go with you specifically.
We have to have a Fresh Hell travel podcast, maybe. A spin-off.
I know.
After we meet.
I would love that.
1000th episode, we meet, and then we're just traveling the world looking at haunted, creepy places or haunted, beautiful places.
The dream. Mm-hmm. All right.
Something good. I think we both have the same something good. 300 episodes.
300. Wow.
And it flew by so quickly. Don't you have the same feeling?
I do. It's because of you. You just keep the ship running smoothly, lady. But it's good. Yeah. I can't believe it's been 300. I feel like we just started this.
Yeah, I feel like I just got the hang of it. Most of the time, we both don't know what we're doing, I think.
No.
But we got so much better because we were so last minute all the time. And now we really have a schedule and documents where we can put in what kind of episodes we want to do. And yeah.
Yeah. We're learning. We're learning as we go.
Yeah. So thank you. The something good is our listeners, because we wouldn't do it without listeners anymore.
No. That ship would have sailed years ago.
All right. That's our 300th episode and our long trip aboard the Queen Mary. Whether you're here for the history, the hauntings, or, just because you like the sound of Annie's very sexy voice, thank you for listening.
Johanna's very sexy voice.
No, I sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, but everyone thinks he's sexy.
But more about that next week, which is going to be amazing.
Yeah, that's right. And if you want to give us a little birthday present for hitting 300 episodes, what we would really love is just the fastest little quick review or rating. We're waiting
for the rating.
We're waiting for the rating. So please, just wherever you listen, it helps more than you think.
Yeah.
More than you know.
You can also subscribe to us, on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube.
Yeah, if you just leave the review, we're going to stop asking. I'm kidding. We're never going to stop asking.
Never.
And if you're craving even more fresh hell, because why wouldn't you if 300 episodes aren't enough, we have a Patreon. That's where you'll find our Cinema Macabre episodes, bonus content, live chats, and the occasional surprise. Like Johanna dressing up as Baby Jane or Norma Desmond. It happened and it was amazing.
It really happened. I love to dress up. It's fun.
Oh my God, you are so good at it.
You can also come and hang out with us and other listeners in our Facebook group. It's one of the friendliest, weirdest corners of the internet. If you're in the Facebook group, you're going to meet people like one of our listeners who listened to the whole podcast 3 times already and officially has heard me talking more than my own husband, I think.
I love it. And don't forget, it's Spooky Fuckery Month. You still have some time left. We want your Halloween listener stories. So email all your weird experiences to us at freshhellpodcast@gmail.com. We also have a P.O. box listed on the website if you're the kind of person who still wants to send real mail or diamonds, which we're open to.
Yeah. Just not too many diamonds. We're kind of picky.
No. Let's keep it classy, people.
Thank you again for 300 episodes. Here's to the next 300 and hopefully at least one plane ticket so Annie and I finally meet in person.
Yeah, let's not wait till 600 episodes before we do that.
No.
So, all right.
We're
that's
trying,
enough. I think
we're trying.
Everything.
It's not like a trope, and we're not pulling your leg here.
No, things keep happening. We'll do a Patreon episode where we just chat about all the things that have popped up, starting with COVID. All right? We've been through some stuff, everyone. I sounded unnecessarily defensive.
Please tell your pets we said hi, hug them, cuddle them, treat them so kindly. Be kind to your fellow human being, but also always remember to be kind to yourself.
That's right. Try to love the unloved. Someone has to. And if you're going through hell,
keep going. Tschüss.
Bye.